Welcome back after a short refreshing break, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I, Meghna,
And I, Saurabh.
are here to take forward the second panel discussion, the theme of which is redefining the risk of resignation. The focus of today's discussion would be overcoming the risk of mass attrition from the organization's retention strategies and enticing the employees to re enter the workforce. The moderator for the discussion is Dr. Rajesh Save, co founder of Inpacker Consulting LLP. Other experts in the panel are Mr. Priyadarshi Bhattacharya, Head Human Resources, Swiss Re GBS India, Mr. Puneet Khurana, Group Head Human Resources, PolicyBazaar.com and PaisaBazaar.com, Ms. Ruchira Bhardwaj, Chief Human Resources Officer, Kotak Life Insurance Company, and Ms. Shweta Nayak, Senior People Partner, Marsh, GC, and OW. Now, I will request all the experts to kindly come up on the stage and form the dice.
Before the discussion begins, let me take this opportunity to introduce all the panelists. Dr. Rajesh Save is co-founder of Inpacker Consulting LLP. He brings with him 3 decades of experience in human resources, consulting, and AI product development. He has been the global head of HR for transnational corporation. Also, he has done his PhD in psychometrics from University of Mumbai.
Mr. Priyadarshi Bhattacharya is Head of Human Resources at Swiss Re GBS India, having over 2 decades of experience. Prior to this, he was the head of HR at DBS Tech. He has also served as a commissioned officer from 1999 to 2005 in the Indian Army. He holds a master degree in communication and media studies from Savitribai Phule, Pune University.
Mr. Puneet Khurana is Group Head Human Resources with PolicyBazaar.com and PaisaBazaar.com. He has worked with companies like Hero Group, Dell, IBM, and Stryker Global. He has won several awards and accolades such as 50 Most Influential HR Leaders in India at World HRD Congress twice in a row in the year 2015 and 16, 50 Most Innovative HR Technology Leaders, prestigious BML Munjal for Learning and Development.
Ms. Ruchira Bhardwaj is Chief Human Resources Officer, Kotak Life Insurance Company. She brings with her 25 years of experience. She has worked with Tata for 14 years, where she had multi-company stint which spanned between iconic organizations as Taj, Relis, to startups such as Chroma. She is an alumni of Institute of Rural Management, Anand, and NMIMS. She is a Global Fellow Talent Management from Wharton School.
Ms. Shweta Nayak is Senior Vice President Human Resources, Marsh, GC, and OW. She has over 25 years of rich experience across various facets of HR. She holds a PGDM HRM from Accelerate Jamshedpur, previously employed with JP Morgan Chase as a Senior HR Business Partner. Earlier in her career, she has also led talent acquisition for North America's business vertical at Capgemini and Campus Recruiting. Now, I'll request my colleagues to formally welcome the panel by presenting the bouquet. Now, I'll request the moderator to take the discussion forward and request the audience to be ready with their question for the Q&A at the end of the discussion.
Guys, thank you so much and really nice, okay. So we all look forward to this event every year, trust me, and Sushma and Ruchika has been really, kind enough to invite us for this. So thank you so much for that. But having said this, just little before this discussion started, that she warned me that, Rajesh, mind you, you are we are in between the discussion and the lunch, right? So you have to be really careful in terms of the time. So on behalf of the panel, I promise you, we will give you absolutely crisp answers. It's like Pareto's, right? So 20-80. So the 80% stuff you'll get in just 20% of the time. So don't worry on that. Okay. So I'm going to start this discussion with a very paradoxical, comment by one of the most celebrated CEOs in the world, and of course in the US, called Jack Welch. And once Jack made a very controversial statement, and he said, resignations are blessings in disguise. So everyone started wondering what is, and he was known as Neutron Jack, right? I mean, he would keep on sacking the guys who are non performing and all that kind of stuff, the bell shaped curve and all that kind of stuff. So what he exactly meant by that was, you get a lot of fresh blood coming in, and that's the reason that they keep on developing and stuff like that. But excessive resignation like what we saw in the last 6 months. And Sushma, thanks for picking up most appropriate theme for the time being. It was just terrific. So in order to kind of reply to him, another very famous CEO again from the US called Herb Kelleher, Southwest Airlines, one of the most celebrated CEO of his time. He said that I don't care for resignation because we don't have, and it's very difficult. Airline industry US is very dynamic. And somebody asked him that why is it so that Southwest has such a low attrition and resignation rate? And the answer was that I know pulse. I know pulse of my employees and I know them very well and they're all engaged. So in that background, I'll start the discussion. And of course, first, my question to Ruchira that what do you think, the pulse and the engagement surveys, in fact, Hitesh made a statement a while ago about HR, the role of HR, right? While so it's welcome, welfare, and farewell for HR. So you meet HR in welcome, and then you see HR in farewell. But what's happening to the welfare is left to the people who are, the guys who are managers. That's what he meant. So anyway, so Ruchira, what's your take on the role of engagement and pulse surveys, specifically in relation with the resignation and the attrition?
Thanks, Rajesh, and thanks, Sushma ji, for inviting. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Good to see young faces. Always keeps people like me on toes. Um, I would divide this my answer in three parts. One is, of course, the Pulse survey and why and how it can really help. It helps in really managing attrition or taking retention level to higher levels. The second I would like to spend on really what is that we need to use and how can we use those pulse survey results. And the third part is on the overall analytics of the data that gets captured during the pulse surveys. So for the pulse survey, first and foremost, I think my formula is it has to be FIR. It has to be, the frequency has to be decided keeping in mind that it doesn't make employees lethargic. They really start giving bullshit answers. Sorry for the French guys, but I'm trying to keep up with the
Perfect.
newer generation. Oh, I have a like daughter who's your age. um, so F is the frequency, R is relevance. Relevance is extremely important when we are doing pulse surveys. What is that you want to measure? How much that you want to measure? How much depth is something that you need to go to measure the employee engagement levels or certain aspects of employee engagement levels? How broad you want the audience to be? Do you want to really capture the breadth, meaning go to all the employees in the organization, or really you want to be shallow in terms of the breadth but go to the depth and capture really the attributes which are really critical? So that's relevance. And I is end of the day how you are. So it's a function of the interest level in which you would want to inspire people to respond to the pulse survey so that you get really the right answers. In the previous panel, every one of the people spoke about trust. So if I have to put a formula, guys, I would say in terms of pulse surveys, if trust is being measured, it is a function of frequency, relevance, and interest to the power action. Now, if you do pulse surveys and you do not take any action, relevant action, then everything falls flat. So, and for us, the currently now, in fact, post the pandemic, the frequency of the way the pulse surveys can be done by HR or by anybody and use technology to do so is extremely important. It makes it extremely inclusive also. So earlier when the surveys used to happen, it used to be those pen and paper when I started my career 25 years ago. Now you can really, it's really getting the pulse. of your people at a given point in time, and you can bifurcate sales, non-sales, function wise, mood wise. In fact, in Kotak we have something called moodometer. So every morning when somebody is applying for their attendance, sorry, we still have the attendance piece, and I'm going to take a leaf out of Vikram's book and maybe go back and say, let can we do away with attendance. So when you are applying, and it's, you don't have to really do a pen and paper attendance, it's on an app piece, so that way it's quite advanced. And that's a good time for us also to gauge the mood of the employees, right? So it's a very simple thing. So it's a moodometer. So how am I feeling today? And if I have really given a bad rating, then the app asks why. So even a pulse survey, which is daily, helps to gather data. And as I said, the frequency can be monthly, it could be quarterly, it could be for a particular set of people, it could be for a particular area that you want to measure at that point in time. And currently, of course, everybody wants to know why people are leaving, right? So there are multiple ways that HR and our teams are trying to figure that out. So that's the pulse survey piece. Now, how do we really use the data? One of the things, I would say, there's some things which are hard data that you get, okay, which is, getting from the pulse surveys. And pulse survey really need not be the only way you can gather data points, right? Data points, the hard data points, can be captured by the business that is getting generated by an individual, the absenteeism rate, the disciplinary issues, and those are traditional way of looking at gathering data about getting the pulse of your people. But the other way, which is the soft way, which I am now, I'm enjoying it really, and these are the things which are so soft. For example, somebody who's very gregarious, normally every day suddenly has stopped talking, stopped mingling, your red flag should go up. If somebody is, on the other hand, somebody has been not really very introvert and not very open to talk and everything, and suddenly is very boisterous, something has happened in the person's life, to understand what has really changed. LinkedIn profile, somebody started liking some everything, commenting on every post, who has been absent. These are softer aspects which tell us also. And there are many, we have in Kotak 10 pointers which actually tell us that, oh, these are the red flags, these are early warning signals for, and this is also, I would say, a pulse survey. It's capturing the pulse of your people at any given point in time. And who's going to capture this pulse? No better than the manager.
Absolutely.
The immediate manager is the person who has to really understand what is really happening with my people, right? And the person's manager, and so on and so forth, right? Every person has a manager. So that's the second part. The third part is the analytics. We are currently, guys, we are living in a very paradoxical world. Hybrid versus non-hybrid, work from office, all in or all out, or even, for example, is a paradox between, do you want to focus on productivity or do you want to focus on care and concern? We heard Hitesh in the previous panel speaking about, one of the interviewees asked him about ESG, right? So this is a time of paradox, right? And there's so many different dissonant views that are there in people's mind, that people are really trying to figure out how to manage this, and leverage the data that you're capturing through those pulse surveys and other means, to really understand, is this person engaged and is going to stay with you or not. But more than that, and which is the analytical piece, is how do you really use this data today? And the last panel also spoke about reskilling and upskilling. I think data capturing also tells us, not from only from within but also from outside, tells us what is the new skill that is required for the future. What is the kind of population that is required, the workforce that is required for the future, for your industry, whether it is reinsurance, whether it's general insurance, the life insurance, any or for a startup, one needs to understand that and analyzing what are the future, where is the future workforce going to come from. If people are resigning on one end and you are measuring only the pulse of those people who are resigning, how do you fill people from outside? You need to also understand the pulse of the outside, and not for just for now but also for the future. How? So that's one thing. One is I understand what is the workforce requirement for the future. I analyze, I understand what are the skills that are required for the future. I analyze, I understand how do I how do I gauge what is the gap currently for those future skills in the organization, right? So for example, you say we need that data analytics person, you need people who understand mergers and acquisition, we need to understand people who understand, tech for example is a big thing. I must tell you something very interesting thing happened yesterday. Udemy sent a mail. Somebody from Udemy sent a mail to me saying, Ruchira, do you know Udemy, all of you? Great. So they sent a mail and saying, Ruchira, by the way, we have analyzed how many people from Kotak are taking courses on Udemy and what are the courses that they're taking. Now, we are a life insurance company. Any guesses what were the top two courses that our people are taking on Udemy? Absolutely. People are taking Python, and I really want to go back to the individual who wrote back that mail to me and understand who are these people. He has absolutely some of the information they have kept to themselves, but very interestingly, right, uh, our people who are working with us, only some of them, by the way, are owning their own learning, which I call wool. We own our learning. They're owning their learning. They're not waiting for the organization to give them that avenue. They're going ahead and doing these courses. Now that also is a data point for me, right? I need to analyze that, I need to understand that, and I need to have policies and processes for that. Now, so all three put together, I would say getting the pulse from inside, not only from surveys, but otherwise, as I said, the softer aspects of getting the pulse, uh, understanding how do I analyze it, and the third part, which I mentioned, is not just analyze, but how are you really going to use it on your in your decision making tomorrow. I'm one person who doesn't like to compartmentalize people. I heard the previous panel, and many people say that, oh, what? The generation Z behaves like this, generation X behaves like this, baby boomers behave like this, and so on and so forth. Even in baby boomers, there were people who started startups. The generation Z, X, Y, whatever you call them, there were people who had started their own companies. Kotak is one of them, right? Which started with Uday Kotak just starting a company one day and then making it a behemoth. So it's not a generation thing, it's an individual thing. And what the pulse check lets you do, and the analysis after the pulse check lets you do, is understand who is who within a generation Z is actually a person who's going to be fought there with you through thick and thin, and who are the ones who are missionaries, who are there for just about 2 years, going to do amazing job, and then go out and find their own mission somewhere outside your organization. I would need to, as HR, as an organization, as leaders in the organization, we would need to identify through these pulse checks, through these analysis, the segments within segments, so that we are having very meaningful conversation, we are having meaningful policies, we are having flexibility, providing able to provide flexibility to them to do their own thing. And that's how you really use the pulse surveys inside and outside to really take care of attrition.
Sure.
Is it helping, guys? A lot of gyan. Is it helping? To a certain extent, yes. To a certain extent, yes.
No, I would believe that the gyan came from your experience, so it's very applied gyan, and that really always helps. But I quite like Moodometer. She has immortalized the Monday morning blues. So on Monday morning the Moodometer would be blue, and the Friday evening it would be a purple or something like that.
Just to allow me Can we have a pulse check right now?
Yeah, why can't we?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
So let's do a pulse check, okay? About what, 70 to 100 people in the audience now? All
Maybe more.
great, maybe more, yes. So if I have to ask you, this is a question and it's a multiple choice question. If I have to ask you, what is that foremost factor that you would consider when you choose a company to join? A, the job profile. So options are A, job profile, note down, okay? A, job profile. B, the brand of the company. C, the compensation. D, flexibility of location. Only 4 options. All right? Only raise of hand, pulse check. The new generation. The first one, job profile. By the way, you can't raise, my God, don't tell me. Compensation is not a factor, by the way, Puneet and yeah, not a factor at all. So
Oh,
I said, sure,
yeah, I
the
see.
foremost thing, only once you can raise hand.
Yeah, and you can't raise both of your hands, by the
Both
way.
of your raise hands. Okay. So the first thing again, put your hands down. Okay. You cannot raise your hand twice. Okay. So I'm again asking the foremost thing. A, raise your hand. A is job profile. मतलब आप लोगों ने हमारी प्रॉब्लम ही सॉल्व कर दी है.
I think
I
we
know.
should wind up
Yeah.
the discussion and straight away
Wind
give
up
you
the no. So I'm glad, and this is what Pulse Survey is. It tells you what is the generation, which is the 100 of you sitting here, and if you're a microcosm, what is that you want, and as an organization, what is that we need to provide to you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, and that's really a practical way of showing them what pulse surveys is. Thank you so much. You spoke about data, which you gather through pulse surveys and the same data. So we generally have feedback. When we used to run pulse survey and engagement in our organizations, the first is, have you given feedback to the employees? But today we talk about feed forward, in the sense that use that data to see where people are living and why they're living and stuff like that. So it's more of a preventive thing that you can do for the rest who are there in the organization. So Punit, and you being a new age company, it's a big challenge for you, because flooded with the thought process, which is completely they say, as they always say, that millennials or whatever she doesn't like, which is correct, because stereotypes are misnomer in modern times. But how do you use this? Prevention is better than cure. They take the data and then try and prevent the further. Would you please kind of dwell on that?
Sure. Thanks, Rajesh. Well, first of all, thank you so much for calling us a new age company. And I'm a student. Yeah. Uh, there are many things that comes in mind when you actually go with prevention than is better than cure. How to really stop getting onto a scenario where you have mass resignation. Uh, Obviously, last 6-7 months have been really tough for all the organizations. But even prior to that as well, even if we compare, uh, the resignations were always there. Yeah. And I was listening to the previous panel, and one of the gentlemen said, uh, resignation comes an after effect of creating a job in the market. So first thing, job has to be created in the market, then resignations come. So obviously, post pandemic, we have seen growth going immense. All the organization wanted to take that edge of technology of all of a sudden, almost starting from scratch. Yeah. So that's where that demand demand raised, and the mass resignation came. Now, how we could actually gone ahead and said that it's we are preventing it. Uh, and there are many points, as I said, but I will actually come to three basic points, keeping my basics right. First thing first is coaching the managers, because it's an old saying and it still stands true. People leave managers, they don't leave organizations. Yeah. If my managers are coached enough, and as Ruchira said, manager is the first point of the pulse survey. They are coached enough to actually understand that I have an early warning signal within my team from 2 or 3 employees. He can actually take it up himself or raise it to HR, and then we come into the picture, and we make sure that we actually prevent that, rather than employee taking a decision of resigning or making up his mind that he's moving on. Yeah. So coaching managers, and that's very, very important. And this specifically comes to the first time managers. You will be managers in about a couple of years from now. So the first time managers, I would say that's my personal thing. Are the people which we need to keep an eye on. Yeah, people who have spent about 4 or 5 years at a managerial level, they have seen ups and downs. They would know how to interact with the employee, and they would know the pulse of the employee. But new managers are the people who HR need to take care of and need to coach them well. Second point, and I probably would say it's not a low hanging fruit, but yes, something that we have been all talking about. Uh, it's and Rajesh has also said the welfare, and within welfare or the talent management, what we say, there comes many a points. Yeah. First thing first is obviously answer the short term and the long term goals of any candidate or any employee. And you got into the Pulse survey, you said job profile. Though I would say the short term goal of anyone getting into a new job or will be the salary. Yeah, and I'll be honest, brutally honest. So answer that in the first go, and then obviously, kind of, you have to drag it to the long term goal as well. Maybe one is the salary, then is the variable, the fixed salary, variable cost, maybe even the ESOPs for startups. That's a brilliant retention tool that you have. Okay, so you give them, you explain it to them, but then you really have to target your audience well. If to a start, a guy who is a call center agent for me, or an insurance agent for me, who's calling customers and selling insurance, if I give them ESOPs, it won't actually give him a kick to stick in the organization. Yeah, because it's not actually resonating to what he wants. For them, spot incentives work best. Yeah, so the best answer for them is spot incentives. So you have to categorize the employees well. HR, that's a probably the difficult task HR has to do. They have to categorize the employees according to the experience levels, according to the mindset, and according to thinking like them, and actually drafting their short term and long term goals. Yeah, that's very, very important. Once you have done that, then comes what culture are you giving them within the organization. And it has to be a competitive culture, open culture. I'll take an example of my organization. uh, we rate employees every year. Yeah. uh, and there was a time when we used to rate sales employees differently and non-sales employees differently. And then came the conversation that why everyone is there doing their work, non-sales also have to, they have their own task, it could be difficult. So what we did, we made a 5 point rating scale for everyone, and we defined the percentage hike of every rating, and that goes across organization, across departments, across levels. So if an exceeding expectations, it getting 15% at a you can say a start level, a director level will also get a 15%. Is as simple as that. But the person who is there taking sales, what incentive that he has spot incentives. Yeah. And again, how you answer their long term goals, we did a pulse survey, as Ruchira said, that what are their goals. And the biggest thing that came to this thing was that everybody, almost 78% of the people wanted to own a house. Okay, so we ran a contest. It's an annual contest, which is now a biannual contest. Jag Jeeto Apna Ghar, where you have to really do sales. You have a monthly target, you achieve that monthly target, you won some slips. Those slips are in the box. The more you achieve, the more slips that you get. At the end of 6 months, there is a lucky draw. So the more slips I have in that drum, the probability of me getting that is bigger. And it's working well for us. So far about 17 people have earned their own houses.
Wow.
And more than 3,000 people, thank you guys, more than 3,000 people qualified for this. And it's not that they did not earn anything. Obviously, toppers earned houses, someone earned cars, someone earned bike, so on and so forth. Yeah. So we actually are sharing our profit with our employees. That's one mantra again that I have to retain, preventively retain resignation. Then obviously, one term that everyone uses, uh, I personally believe that's very less used, is employee engagement. keeping an employee engaged is not only making them playing some games or a Diwali celebration or a any other celebration. You need to know the pulse of your employees. What are they looking for? Jag is one example. Yeah, we rolled it out. It's working wonders for us. Yeah, the other example that I would give is cricket. Again, one of the Pulse survey, it got to us that cricket is passionately followed within organization. So what we did, we ran a PB cricket league twice a year. uh, it's an expensive cricket league, and trust you me, we started off with 3 teams. Currently the league is running right now. I have 23 teams participating in PB cricket league. So almost a 25 member team plus into 25. So almost I am engaging at least 650 members plus their regular respective teams, their team managers, and obviously their BU heads as well, who come and cheer them up.
Wow.
Yeah. So small things that we need to do. Uh, we really, as I said, we really wanted to make it very simple, very basic. We started from basic. We're there. We are growing as our people are telling us what they require, and we're making sure that uh, mass resignation don't hurt us. It actually didn't hurt us much in the past, uh, but yes, we cannot say that we are always kind of safe from it, but we are making our efforts.
Thank you so much. And really, the moment you spoke about cars and houses, I could see quite a few of these guys. The one in the tie over there. Look at them. Quite a few guys have already prepared their mind for policy bazaar. So you better be. But yeah, I think this is a very important point in the way you shaped it up. In fact, with your cricket league concept, that reminds me of Herb Keller, again, the Southwest Airlines CEO, terrific guy. He was asked the same question. He said, "No, we don't. Employees don't work in my company. They have fun." And in fact, their tagline was, there's a pun there, just plain fun. And since they are in aviation business, that plane was there. So it's just plain fun, And he also himself used to call himself as chief DJ and CEO. Right. So, and there are videos him dancing with that shop, dance floor and all that.
I'll quickly jump onto one point. I'm sorry, Rajesh.
Sure.
One thing that I missed is we always heard of power naps. Yeah, we have fun naps. Yeah, 10 minutes every floor, and you would not know. All of a sudden, there will be some game or maybe a music. 10 minutes for sure. Yeah, and you can tell it to the customer. You know what? We are having fun. There is something. So, can you hold for about a minute or so, or can I call you back? We are okay to do that. And as I said, those 10 minutes actually recharge the employees for the next 3 hours.
Wow. By the way, I'm giving him my CV. Let's see whether I can have.
Srinivasan sir would know it much better.
No, it's really great. See, the point that you rose very important, but I would like to just kind of reverse the entire pyramid. And so, any HR, all of us are HR guys, and you're going to meet a lot of HR guys. And this theme is definitely resignation and attrition. But even in general, you kind of do a text mining of the kind of stuff that we speak, and do a word cloud out of that. The most important word spoken would be attrition and resignation. And unfortunately, nobody talks of retention, because though it's a part of same different side of the same coin, we are so paranoid that Infosys attrition went up by 15% in the last quarter. Nobody talks of retention. Everybody talks of attrition. So, what do you think, Ashwata? This is a very important thing. Don't you think that your mindset is so driven towards attrition, resignation, all negativities rather than having retention? Nobody says we have 98% retention. We have 2% attrition. So, what's your call on this? What do you think?
Thank you, Rajesh. First of all, thank you for an engaged audience. I think we are seeing a lot of interest in the topic, and this has come at the right time. But thankfully, I think we are now talking about retention, because I'm sure all of you have really understood the drivers for resignation. To the point that you're making, Rajesh, why are we only talking about resignation and why not about retention? I think we are all tuned, and as corporate, as employers, we kind of tune to knowing why are people leaving, but we do not even know why do people want to stay with us. Now, this is the point in time that a lot of employers are now focusing their attention, their efforts on saying, those people, those employees who stuck with us, what made them stay? I think that's a concept that's being coined now, what is called as a stay interview. A lot of companies, you talked about surveys, which is basically pulse surveys. There are companies that are running stay interviews with people who've decided to stay back. And we're not talking of people who've been 10 years, 8 years. Those generations have disappeared from the workforce where people kind of build a lifetime of experience. Our parents used to be in the same company, banks for 25, 30 years. You don't find that in India anymore. Even if people are staying for 2+ years, it's a big achievement because we're seeing something valuable and we're saying, why did those employees decide to stay back? There are 3 4 drivers which I can count on my fingers, say why do people stay back. And no, compensation is not a driver. We saw that in the room right now. The most important thing what people like when they decide to stay back is definitely the kind of trust, the transparency that their managers, their leadership have, the vision that the leaders have in the organization for the company, for the employees, the opportunities that they have to grow their careers, learning, upskilling. These are things that drive them. And of course, motivation is a compensation, but it isn't that first top three that we see. Whenever we do all the stay interviews, we get to know what the ambition of a colleague is, what the ambition of an employee is. And that's where we try to focus our attention. What's in it for me? Vitam. What's in it for me is what we try to go after because that is what makes an employee stay. Lot of work that happens, there's a lot of analytics that comes out of all our surveys, our conversations. There is a lot of HR engagement that happens, not to the kind of the fun engagement, but literally having conversations, doing floor connects, and of course, people managers doing those conversations give us a lot of insights. I think to the point, Rajesh, you had asked, how about we turning the whole concept on its head and deciding what is making people stay back? That's where I think a lot of the focus has to be for companies which have seen a lot of attrition. Attrition is a metric, we can't ignore it. It also tells you what's going wrong. But I think the more important part is those who can stay back, what can we start increasing more from an effort basis, from an investment basis? How do we help people grow themselves and their careers with us? In the last 2 years of the pandemic, we have seen a lot of companies going out of their way above and beyond to take care of their employees, and that is what is going to give you more benefits in these times when you're seeing mass resignations. Companies who stood by their employees, who took care of them and their loved ones and their family members, those are the employees who decide to stay back, because there's also the family who tells you, if I decide to quit a company, probably like my company, I'm just giving an example, which took care of the employees during COVID times. We were provided free vaccines for ourselves, for our family members. Nobody questioned you. You just had to put in a request. Somebody at an HR level would evaluate it and give you some additional amount to the tune of 1 2 lakhs. No questions asked, just provide us with bills and we will give you that out of pocket expenses. Companies who did those efforts, I think we're now seeing the benefits of that, where people are saying, while this XYZ company is offering me additional money, 2x 3x salary, I would still want to stay back because my family members feel that I'm in a company which takes care of me and my family, so I shouldn't be looking out. Now that is where I think a lot of the benefits you will be able to see. Again, coming back to the point, why do people leave the company? We all know there are different factors, but the fact of the matter is it's also coming to a stage where it's stabilizing. In the last few years, we've seen a lot of attrition happening. Slowly, with the economy, global recession coming in, we know that certain jobs will start stabilizing. The kind of money that people were getting will also stabilize. And that's the point that we need to catch in and say, what is it in for you that you should stick on to this company? We give you job security. We will take care of you even though the jobs in the market will go down. We will ensure that we will not probably lay off people. We will not do job pay cuts. We will not make sure that you have to probably think about taking a few hours off work. A lot of companies are providing options to do part-time work so that they can save on cost. Companies are looking at those options, saying, how do I make my employees stay back in the organization by not affecting their social, economical, financial needs? And that's where I think that makes a lot of difference. Does it answer your question?
Absolutely, absolutely. Very appropriate. So yes, definitely, retention focus would tell you why, what are the retention drivers rather than what are the attrition drivers, and then we can definitely. But you know what? In my one of my earlier lives in corporate, we had, in fact, insurance. You guys would know there's a skill called duck creek, which is very, very specific and niche. And we had quite a few duck creek skills in our company. And we were an IT services company providing insurance services to our clients. And suddenly we realized that these guys are leaving, and we did a little more probing into it, and we realized that they are not joining any other IT services company. And we were a little dumbstruck, because generally what happens, all insurance companies' resources are kind of, circulated in that particular domain. And you have IT services, you have pharmaceutical. Suddenly these guys are going all over the place, and we were surprised. In fact, they were joining State Farm and Allstate, which are like one of the very, really big ones in the US, and we didn't know what to do. So, Darshi, you've been kind of facing this problem, being Swissy, of course, guys who are leaving you but not joining insurance, and they're going all over the place, and suddenly you don't know how to, because you're so conversant with your own cocoon, right? I'm sorry, use the wrong word probably, but then how do you deal with it? You've been facing this kind of stuff lately, right?
Well, thank you for that question. So the good part of going last is that I can just say I agree with everything that's been said. Life is good.
No, there's another round coming, so better be
Cool. So I think there are a few ways to look at it. The first thing, and I'll come to the wider answer later, but I think if any other organization feels that Swiss Re is a company worth hiring from, it's a good thing. It speaks volumes about who we are as an organization. If our employees are viewed as a poaching ground, awesome. More power to these organizations who want to hire from us. The other aspect is that I think when you look at large scale attrition, there are typically external and to a certain extent internal macro issues which are affecting that job demand. I think you spoke about it very well, that the very first thing is that I will leave because there is a job I'm getting outside. So if that market is stagnant, I have nowhere to go, right? So I think a few of the things in the Indian market specifically, I think a lot of the regulations that IRDA had got relaxed to a certain extent. So organizations have grown, new organizations have come into the picture. I think at the global level, where organizations like Shweta's and mine play, we have a lot of our employees who are not India focused. They work and support the wider organization across the globe. We are organizations which are impacted by a wider global crisis as well. So entire world, the financial services industry is going through a bit of a crunch, which means that they want to shift more jobs potentially to India, which means again that is leading to an increase in the whole job market. I think localized or specific projects that again happen from time to time. IFRS 17 is a great example of it. It's being driven globally. Every insurance organization needs to align with it. Who's driving IFRS change, guys? Do you know? Who's helping insurance come? Most of the insurance organizations align with IFRS 17. It's the big four, right? Your EYs and KPMGs of the world and Deloitte's of the world, right? Great. What's the next thing? Where are they driving this work from, irrespective of where that insurance company is working from or is headquartered at? India, right? So today, organizations like EY have a bigger actuarial capability in India than any insurance company.
Wow. That's something.
Okay. So suddenly, the job market has opened up in a way that it could not be seen in a few years before. Will it last for a very long time? Probably not. IFRS 17 will eventually come to an end, but that's only the death of IFRS 17. Eventually, something else will come along, and the Big Four know how to milk money from unsettled organizations like ours, right? So I think there are multiple such macro elements that drive that large-scale attrition, right? Or drive the job market that can affect attrition. The second thing, on a lighter note, I think again Puneet mentioned, employees leave managers. Employees also join managers.
Very true.
Yeah. So we found that with something like IFRS, EY just had to pick one top guy from our team.
Yeah.
And that person went along with 30 more people. or a Digit Insurance is setting up and they have an entire open playing field to pick up people en masse from anywhere. Again, localized issues. That boom is not going to last forever, but it is lasting for the period that it is, right? So these are all multiple macro level things that impact attrition. At the micro level, however, again, I will rely on what, again, best part of going last. So what Ruchira mentioned, that she does not like this aspect of putting people into buckets. So there's a quote that I really love to quote quite often. It says that every individual is an exception to the rule. Right. So the moment I bucketize and I start saying people are leaving me for this or that, or Gen X wants this and Gen Y wants that, and boomers want this and millennials are like that, I think we have a bit of a challenge. So yes, while the job market is opening up and there are more and more jobs to offer, I think at the individual level, the reasons which are driving that individual to take a decision could be very, very different, right? And lastly, I think somewhere attrition is okay, to your point that you mentioned when you started the entire conversation. um, it's not about the fact that attrition is happening. It's more about how does the organization deal with what happens after, right? And to, I think, Shweta's point, how do we ensure that we are making our organization strong enough so we are having retention conversations rather than trying to react in a after the thing has already occurred. So every organization needs to work to ensure that the basics are right. You have a culture that is inclusive. You have a culture which is is accepting of everything that employees bring to the workforce. And at the same time, I don't think any organization is bad. We are all here representing different organizations, and I don't think the culture in any of our organizations is going to be terrible, right? So I think in the end, it also comes down, when going back to the micro aspect of what works for that individual. I have personally worked in organizations where I could not survive. I would have been killing myself if I had been there. People had been there for 20 years. So, who's at fault? My manager was fine. It wasn't a manager issue either, right? So, at times, it's just that I am not a fit in a certain organization and environment. But the organization is absolutely fine. Most employees are very happy being in that organization. So it's again wanting to find that what is it that individual is really looking for. And as long as you do the again, I think attrition quite often comes down to pull and push factors, right? So if the pull is awesome, right? If Policy Bazaar gives me a fantastic job tomorrow with a awesome package, and I get to report to Puneet, I'll probably take the offer because the pull is so strong, right? Just look at all the stuff they're doing there. I mean, I'd want to work in that organization. So that pull factor at times can be very, very strong. And I'd probably leave my current organization, even though things are awesome. Just the pull is just so strong. It happens. I'm getting 100% jump from EY. Sure, I'll consider it. EY is a great organization to work for. Like I said, no organization is bad in that sense, right? I've only heard good things about EY. I've never heard anything bad about EY. So let me go work for EY. Why not, right? So I think that pull factor will always be there and will entice people from time to time. You have to manage the push factors. Are we ensuring that the culture is inclusive? Like I said, are we ensuring that we are focusing on that frontline managers, the first line managers? Are we developing their skills? Are we ensuring that relevant conversations are happening with the employee and the managers from time to time? How are we managing the performance? So that the basics, as long as those basics are right, I think the push elements should be under control. Ensure that you compensate well, of course. You can't say I'm a great company, but I'll pay you peanuts. So ensure that those basics are right. Sometimes the pull factors you can't really do too much about. So I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, that makes sense. In fact, so the attrition is like inflation, necessary evil. That's what necessary evil. That's what one can always say. Great, great. So, guys, we have about 10 minutes because we started late, so we can have one more round of interview. But we need to be brisk and fast in the second round. So I was making a presentation to my board. This is like way back in 2015 or 16, and the attrition figure came in, and my chairman saw the figure and says, Rajesh, you know something? Why can't you don't talk about number of people, head count in terms of percentage. Talk about number of years lost. I said, Bharat, if I do that, there'll be some scary figure like 30,000 years of experience lost. And then we thought we'll do some feature engineering. 30,000 years of experience divided by a number of people lost, something like that. We'll prepare and do that. The point here is it number of head count? Losing those guys is important, or the kind of knowledge that we have lost is important. It's quite possible that again, it's a very subjective thing. 10 years of experience could be 1 multiplied by 10, or 1 10 times, or 10 as in 10 wholesome years of experience. So one doesn't know. So Shweta, next question to you in terms of attrition of knowledge versus attrition of people, because we never speak about attrition of knowledge. It's all about number of people lost, percentage. IT services firms, most of them, it's a Chinese army, right? A huge number of people at the bottom, and out of them, quite a few keep on leaving. So suddenly the figure looks huge, gigantic, but number of people lost would be definitely, in terms of knowledge, may not be, right? So what's your take on knowledge versus attrition of knowledge versus attrition of people?
Very good question, Rajesh, and I'll tell you why it's important. Because at the heart of every employer's worry is basically the knowledge, loss. Why do we call it as a knowledge loss? For every person that we lose, there's a lot of investment in training, in time, recruiting the backfill, because every person you lose, you take time to go out into the market. And in Indian markets, it's very difficult to bring people on board very quickly, because every company we know, it's about 2 to 3 months of notice period. So it's almost like a person leaves tomorrow and I have to wait for 45 days, 60 days, 90 days for the next replacement to come on board. What happens to that work till that time? Ideally, you should have got an overlap period where somebody who's left has transitioned the work to the new person. That doesn't happen in the real world. There is a gap, and that gap has a very heavy price for the company, because till that time you're billing your client, but there's nobody who's doing that job, which means that knowledge has gone out. The work has to be now taken care by the existing people. So there's a lot of shouldering of work done by the current team, which is already overburdened with 14 hours of work, which means you're also now kind of seeing, okay, do I have the risk of losing more people because their work life balance is gone for a toss? That apart, I think even if you look at insurance as a domain, it's a knowledge based industry, right? It's not like any other FMCG. I'm not saying FMCG is not important, but insurance is a lot of knowledge work. It needs specialized skills, it needs the power of computing. And every time you have somebody leaving, that knowledge will need to be rebuilt from scratch. Why do we say that it's a knowledge base? Once you start doing the computing, it's then very intuitive for a person to say, looking at the facts, you can actually say this number looks right, this one will take 14 years for us to cover the losses, this is the risk, this is the actuary. You can actually do math just looking at the data. If you lose that kind of talent, it takes a lot of time to get that back. And secondly, the insurance is also a company. Somebody did say that people leave managers, but they also join because of managers. A broker, when he moves out from a company to another company, what does he take along with him?
Customers.
Clients, customers. It's a huge loss to the company, and that cannot be quantified by just attrition numbers, because that hits your bank balance pretty badly. So I think, to your point, not looking at numbers and looking at the knowledge, that number gets pretty high, and that can give real nightmares for a CEO to not sleep well, because you know that you're losing a lot more than just numbers.
Yeah,
I hope that answers your question.
absolutely. And insurance industry actually requires, this approach of retention of knowledge, because it's not a generic industry. It's a very specific. Very well said. Very well said. But talking of huge attrition, and again going down to the guys who are joining and immediately quitting, and in HR parlance we call it infant mortalities. And that's a real pain area for all of us, tell you, because you make so much of effort to get the guy on board. Right from, in fact, it's roughly about, considering 3 months of notice period in India, it's roughly about 5 months to get a person on board, and then 20 days, 25 days, 6 months, 8 months down the line, the guy says, well, thank you so much. And then it's a pain area, because again, you have to go back and start everything. So again, Darshi, you are the kind of, in the situation where you've got talking of EY where you're losing people, definitely the Rolling Stones would be coming to you as well, and you have to take care of them as well. So how do you tackle this infant mortality issue?
No, so I think it's a very interesting situation. We, as an organization, do actually lose a lot of people in the first 2 years. And interestingly enough, we are not isolated. A lot of organizations do tend to lose people in the first 2 years, particularly. Um, we do a lot of so we do this very interestingly. We've actually partnered with an organization that employs behavioral psychologists to reach out to employees who've left us after leaving us. So the stay interviews work, but there's no point having an exit interview after a person has put down his or her paper. It's pointless. So we have that conversation, in fact, about at least a quarter to 6 months after they've left us, when they're a lot more open to share what really drove them to leave the organization. With that 0 to 2 years bucket, we found an overwhelming number of people primarily saying that they got oversold. Okay. That seems to be one of the primary reasons. The second was more around, like I said, around their ability to fit into the organization, because they thought it would be something versus it was something else. And every organization is very, very different. So Swiss Re as an organization, just if I'm to talk about my culture, there's no right or wrong culture. It is just what it is, right? So Swiss Re we're a Swiss company headquartered of Switzerland, obviously, and it's a very collaborative. We are reinsurance, so the risks that we cover every time are in millions and billions of dollars. And hence we are essentially and primarily a risk management company, which means risk management is in our DNA, which means we like to ponder over everything for long periods of time, right? Which on one hand makes us very strong with our basics and our fundamentals, and we are a very stable organization. Flip side, it makes us slow and bureaucratic, right? Again, nothing right or wrong about it. That also makes us very employee centric. We're very, very employee centric as an organization. I came in from an organization, I think in my introduction you would have heard I worked in DBS Bank. DBS Bank is a Singaporean bank, and for the almost 5 years that I was there, I thought I was running on a treadmill at speed of 15. I didn't know where every day went. And when I joined Swiss Re, I thought somebody just switched off that treadmill, right? So it's a very, very different work environment. Now, those first, now it's been 2 years, so I've managed to last 2 years in Swiss Re. So that's a good part. But in those first formative 6 months, I would think, were very crucial for me as an employee. I'm an employee as well. I could be HR, sure, but I'm an employee as well. So those first 6 months to 1 year was very, very crucial for me to understand context, understand the organization, everything that I just mentioned, that we are a Swiss company, we're a risk management company. There are reasons why we are the way we are that may work for you, that may not work for you. But if you want to make it work for you, then there is a certain way that we expect you to behave, because this is who we are. We are not an organization of 15,000 people with 150-year history is not going to change for you. Yeah, we can try and make iterative changes in our culture, but it's not going to change overnight for you, because you feel that we should be in a certain way. So I think it's very, very important. The crux of the matter then thereby comes back to that when we are hiring people, how do we ensure that the conversation is very, very transparent? It's you as much as the individual looking or the candidate looking for a job with Swiss Re. It's equally about Swiss Re being very transparent about who we are as an organization. What can you expect as an organization? What can you expect in that job? And I think the challenge today, which a lot of organizations falter in, we are not different in that sense. We love to blow it out of proportion. We are awesome. This job is awesome. You're going to join a team that is dynamic, that completely kicks ass, right? So join us because this will transform your life. And then I joined the organization and I realized, not really. Or I got sold so much about what I was expecting it to be. It didn't really turn out to be that way, right? So then I start getting a bit antsy about what I want to do in those first 2 years. Then it's an artificial push factor that I've created, and suddenly the employee is looking outside to see if the answers could be found somewhere else, right? So I think there are multiple reasons again and again, goes back to that aspect of every individual is an exception to the rule. So look at every case and understand what you can do to help get the basics right. All of that stuff still remains true for this. But I think it's very important that you get it absolutely right in terms of making it very clear in the recruitment function. The line managers who would be involved in taking the interviews to be very clear and transparent about what to expect when you join us. You get that right, I think most of that infant attrition will, to a certain extent, get addressed at the micro level. Again, micro levels comes down to every individual that you need to look at.
So very to the point answer, because some point in time, one of my CEOs told me that, Rajesh, why can't you try out some sales guys in recruitment? And I said that will be a disaster, because sales guys, exactly blowing out of proportion, and suddenly they'll sell a Taj Mahal to someone, and then the guy comes and joins, and when he realizes, my God, this is like not even a Fatehpur Sikri ka whatever that. Anyway, very very good, terrific. To the point kind of stuff. But one more thing that always been intriguing me, that especially the large scale companies where have thousands and thousands of employees, and suddenly you speak about inflated attrition numbers and things like that. Howard Smith, the legendary mercurial CEO of Starbucks. So Starbucks had similar issues, and he was asked, "What about attrition?" So I don't care about this attrition. I'm focused only on my performers. I mean, they should remain with me. That's about it. They are driving. He categorically said that there are a handful of guys who are driving Starbucks, and I'm sure they don't quit me. So performers attrition is another segment altogether in the entire realm of attrition. So Ruchira, what do you think about moving from massy to classy in terms of retaining? I should not be saying attrition, because I made the point of retention. So retaining performers rather than going all over, because then your energies are focused only on a small scale of mass, which is like very important for your organization. So what's your call on this kind of
So I must
approaches?
start with 3 disclaimers. One, actually, Kotak is completely opposite to Starbucks. For us, every person who joins us is a talent,
Yeah.
and we treat them as a talent. The second thing is, I think we're fooling ourselves more we say that compensation doesn't matter. All of you, I know you said job profile, but the moment that 20%, 25% hike offer comes, and when you're comparing yourself with your friend who has joined another organization at another salary level, and you're already in the compensation bandwagon. Coming back to your question, that's where the classy and the massy hits the road. When you're saying that everybody is a talent, you are trying to strive to see the massy becomes classy, meaning they are the ones who are going to push your growth agenda, just not for now, but the sustainability agenda for the organization. So it's not a now and here proposition. There are organizations who will be focusing on now and here, getting the bottom line is maybe not the top priority, it is getting the top line. Maybe the boards want that to be driven, maybe the management committee management also wants to drive exactly the same thing. It's to each their own, to each the own company. In Kotak, for us, as I said, if we consider everybody who's joining us as a talent, then we have to grow people from within. If we have to grow people from within, how do we grow? Why do we grow? Do we grow them just vertically, giving them higher compensation and higher grades? Or do we also find a horizontal growth for them? Right?
Okay.
And especially, see, what has happened in the past 2 years is the growth kind of got a little bit struck for most of the industries because of the pandemic. As a result, people didn't find those increments, the right increments or the right growth within their own organization. And suddenly, when Darshi made a very critical point about another industry when it opens up, and currently, which was the IT industry, when it opened up, they were hiring from everywhere, right? They were hiring from each of the industries because they needed people. So actuarial, the EY people, if they needed actuarial people, they were hiring from the insurance companies, correct? Now, when that happens, you have to have an agenda to see that the massy becomes classy. and you have to train them, you have to upskill them. As I mentioned earlier, it has to be a driven agenda that you own your own learning, so that even if the organization is not putting resources on your growth, you yourself are not becoming redundant, you're not going to become obsolete, because you want to upgrade yourselves, you want to upgrade your skills. And believe you me, organizations such as Swiss Re and Kotak, we are extremely proud when the talent goes out to another organization and we say, oh, acha, we have now spread our tentacles, let me put it this way, so that I can also get information from that person about that organization, insider information, so to say. So that's the second point. The third point is that most of the organizations have now realized that they do not want to play the compensation arbitrage, because it is not going to go anywhere.
Correct.
And that's where the differentiation between massy and classy have to happen. Now, classy can be a classy today, but not the classy for future. Somebody who's really doing a good show at this point in time, but you know that the person has been there and done that, and is not going to, if the person is not going to upgrade or upskill himself or herself, they are not going to take the organization or the team or the department to the next level the organization is wanting to go, right? That is the differentiation which organizations are doing, and at Kotak we are doing it extremely prudently. We are saying these are the people we are going to put our money on, and that's where the compensation is going to play a role. Classy is not because those 9 box thing, which is again a GE, yes, piece, is that if you are on the ninth box yesterday, year before, you will always remain a 9 box. Are you ready for the future? And those are the classier people. Those are the people who you would want to put your money on, you would want to differentiate, and you want to grow and see that they are definitely retained. But not forgetting that the massier people also have to get classier. So how do we do that? You have tiered learning programs which are not nice to do learning programs. These are the programs where you are really certifying that person that you are ready for the next role, for the future, and you are the one who's going to take us forward, which also requires a lot of mind shift change, right? Because a person who is doing a brilliant sales all through the life and is actually currently also is a brilliant salesperson, says, why do I really need to change and adopt digitalness in me? Because I know as an insurance, physical piece only works, right? But we know that the person is, you want to bet upon, you want to see that the person does a mind shift change and becomes classier.
Very true.
Yeah. So have I answered
So,
your question?
Yeah, of course, of course. In fact, you remind me of Google, because Google is known for rounds and rounds of interviews. So there are two things Google does. One is they don't believe in Ivy League, right? So they've decided to go to which say, if you have competence that we are looking for, come and join us. But then you have to go through all that rigor. So she spoke about 9blogger and Neutron Jack's infamous bell-shaped curve, and then cutting down the bottom 5%, 10%. So Google also does similar things, but they don't cut. They said that the fact that we have spent so many months in recruiting you and so many rounds, you must be good. Problem would be with us that we have not been able to utilize your skills. So they put a lot of efforts to ensure that that so-called mass become class, exactly in the line that you said. But and that's a very sound point indeed. So talking of Google, something which is synonymous with Google is analytics. And when she's checked the pulse, most of you said data analytics would be a Udemy question that you asked about, right? So no discussion can end without artificial intelligence, mentioning of artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? So my last question to you, since new age company, Punit, Policy Bazaar, and you guys have been doing quite a few things on using AI, ML for predictions, prescriptions. So would you like to kind of give some, throw some light on this? How are you using it, and what's happening on that?
Sure, Rajesh. I'll take an example of one of my previous organizations, where we used machine learning and artificial intelligence right at the beginning. So there was a Gallup test at the beginning in one of my previous organizations, and when I was giving interview for that organization, that Gallup test went up to 2 hours and 48 minutes, and it was a telephonic test. Somebody called me from Singapore, and we spoke for 2 hours and 48 minutes. Uh, all I could relate was there were obviously multiple questions asked, in a different way, and they were judging me on my voice modulation and the way how quickly I answer, how quickly I can think on the ground. And then post I joined that organization, I saw my graph. They gave a graph of every you can say aspect as to highly predictive or low predictive, and that's where your role has been decided. So as once you use machine learning or artificial intelligence, but you use it for the heck of using it, doesn't solve the purpose. Yeah. What are you going to do with the data that you are collecting? Yeah. So I joined, or rather, I gave an interview for X position. I was given a position higher than that because, according to the Gallup, they say that I could manage slightly complexer situations, and they gave me that position. Thanks to Gallup. However, how are we using it in our daily scenarios? Hiring is one, but managing a talent, as Ruchira said, modometer. Yeah, that's one. It's actually telling you the pulse of the entire flow. Maybe which team is going right, which person is going right, where do we need to put a little more focus on. At the same time, uh, what are we developing these tools, these machine learnings or artificial intelligence on a regular basis? Because whatever is working for me now might not work for me 1 month down the line, or maybe a couple of months down the line, because my manpower is changing. All said and done, whatever I try to do to retain people at my right at the beginning level, at my call center level, I'm sitting at about 60% of annualized attrition, which is very healthy attrition in a call center scenario. Yeah, 60% is a very good attrition. So I replace my 60% of manpower every year. So the tool which was working for me, or the questionnaire, or the artificial intelligence, or the machine learning which was working for me 6 months down the line, might not work for me right now. So I need to upgrade it, regularly. So one of the comments previous panel made, that even if machine learning and artificial intelligence comes in, we would need manpower. We would need manpower to churn the data, to update it regularly, because we, the name suggests, we are human resources. We cannot go without humans. But at the same time, humans need to think on the ground. They need to answer the questions what is been asked, what is the question of the hour. Yeah. But rightly said by Rajesh, and everyone concluded that yes, we are in an era where we would need more artificial intelligence, more machine learning. We need to prepare one code, one query. We need to run it for some time. Meanwhile, at the back end, we need to start thinking, feed forward, get the data from whatever happened, and feed it as for forward looking thing. And we need to prepare things which are answering for future questions as well. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. I think this is very important because I guess in HR we're just starting on that, embarking on that journey, but we have a long way to go. So I remember one of the things, we were doing something similar in my previous organization, and so the dependent variable was attrition and performance both. What is it that we are doing to recruit performers, and what is it that we are doing to, and we limited ourselves to only campus hires because that data was readily available. A lot of data was available in that sense. Being an IT company, of course, data is not much of an issue, but yeah, a lot of data is available. So we did lots and lots of work on it and couldn't find a single variable that would help us to decide that what is recruiting the performers. One of our guys happened to be basically an ML guy in my team. He said, "Sir, I need some 2-3 resources for 4-5 months." I said, "Why?" "I need to. There's a lot of data available in files which is not there in the computer, so I need to get the data entered first." I said, "My God, okay, theek hai, le lo." And then when he used random forest, and then eventually he came up, "Sir, you know what? The panel members is the variable." I said, "What do you mean?" So there are some panel members who are consistently selecting performers, and there are some panel members who are consistently selecting non-performers. I said, "Let's probe into it. I want to know which are these panel members, and let's understand why." Another shocking thing came in. that the guys who were selecting non-performers were one of the best performers in our company. I mean, few of the best performers in the company. I said, what's happening this? You are the performer, and that's the reason that we are sending you to. I mean, of course, we didn't question that guy, but apparently the feedback came from my HR panel members that, these performers go there and they are more interested in showing off their knowledge rather than knowing what the other guy knows. So most of the times they end up selecting guys who are not good, but they are very happy that we have displayed our. So I mean, and of course after that we I can't say blacklisted, we brownlisted those guys. We couldn't have done it. But yeah, I mean, really we have a long way to go. But I think one point you made is very important. On that note, I would like to kind of conclude this discussion is General Patton, one of the most celebrated generals of the U.S. Army, Second World War. Once he made a very significant statement. He said, wars are fought with weapons, but won by men. So you may have some of the best machine learning, artificial intelligence tools or whatever that you have, right? But if you don't have capable people, and that's the same thing I think Hitesh spoke about in the previous thing, that you ultimately need human resources to run this entire thing. So and then that particular statement has imprinted on my brain that wars are fought with weapons. You can have numerous weapons to yourself. But 1971 war, Pakistan had Patton tanks, by the way, one of the most powerful tanks, named after the same General Patton. But we won the war. Okay, so they had best of the equipments, but we had best of the men, probably, right? So on that note, first of all, thank you so much, Srinivasan sir, year on year organizing these events and giving us opportunity to meet at least. All of us were just saying that a while ago, that this is the time when we all meet, right? Once in a year. So that's our selfish interest in coming here as well. But yes, interacting with this. And thank you so much, Sushma. You've been really, really kind. And I think I can't see the driving power behind. Oh my God, this lady is awesome, right, Ruchika? Without her, I think, I mean, she did it so well. And all the volunteers. In fact, I think Shweta was saying that we were almost, man-to-man mark, right? So, completely, the moment we left our house this morning, to reaching here was completely, kind of, I mean, without any artificial intelligence, natural intelligence did that. So thank you so much, everyone, and hope to see you all again, in the same conference. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you all the experts for such a thought-provoking conversation. This will definitely help all of us to navigate better in our career. Now, I'll request my colleagues to come and offer the memento as a token of gratitude. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.